But I think it leads into kind of this question. And, again, I was talking about this, on Women in Motorsports a couple weeks ago as well, talking about how this was going to be the one remaining track on the ARCA schedule by far that had the most challenges for these drivers. Brandon, we talk about the lack of experience a lot of these drivers have, how expensive this series is, how chaotic races at Bristol can be. This weekend, not a great example, but we've seen it before in the Cup Series, let alone racing in ARCA here. We see the speed differentials between some of these names that you see right here. I mean, was really getting nervous for Brian Clubb there at the start of that race. And again, it's no disrespect to Brian Clubb or Brad Smith or Nate Moeller or any of these guys, but you cannot compare the resources that those teams have to the likes of William Sawalich or Connor Zilic. And I don't want to see anybody get hurt out there, whether it's guys at the front of the field or at the back of the field. So putting all that together, when you look at the ARCA schedule, Brandon, do you think that Bristol is a track that we should be going to?
In my wishes, Ben, my non-realistic wishes, I would wish that we would be able to go to a track like Bristol for ARCA, and it would be very competitive, and because this is the kind of track that I think they need experience at before they go to any higher level. And so I think it's wonderful that they're at Bristol, but when you put boots to the ground, when you actually get to the actual product, we tend to get some instances like this where there are multiple cautions going on, and just not able to hold it together. And the youth, the inexperience, it all kind of gets it shows up quite or much more clearly at a place like Bristol. And so as much as I'd like for it to have a spot, it looks like it is very tough to justify keeping it there. But I hate that, because I really want them to have that sort of experience before they go and make those mistakes at a higher level.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. And again, I think that you bring up a great point about giving these drivers experience, but I don't know. I think the counter to that is probably there are other short tracks out there all across the country where they could get a similar experience here. But I understand that it's a business. I understand that this is great exposure. And by the way, I mean, we shouldn't overlook of course, the current state of the ARCA Menard Series East, and we've talked about this countless times in this show here, how it's more than half of the races are just combo races with Big ARCA now. But the plus side to that, I suppose, is that the ARCA East Championship race is on national television on FS1. ARCA West can't say that. Their spring race at Phoenix is a combo race. Their spring race gets nationally televised. But if you want to watch the West Series finale, you have to have a Flow Racing subscription. So at least this gives East some visibility here in that regard, and I think that's great. And it's great, that you're on a companion date with the NASCAR Cup Series. You get 33. It was really 34 cars. There's a DNS here. I'll make sure to note that in the last car article this week for Mitch Gibson here, credited with a 34th place finish as well. But massive car count by ARCA standards, at least in recent times. I totally get it. But then I look at the race we saw, and I look at how the championship was unfortunately decided here, and I look at these caution laps to green flag lap statistics here. 42.4% of this race was run under caution. Thankfully, from lap 161 to lap 195, we got a 35-lap green flag run. The second longest green flag run, as far as I can tell from these stats here, was 16 laps. From lap 48 to 63, and that was when the Misaraka Balkan Zilic incident occurred here. So you take that out of the equation, we struggled to run so much as 15, 16 green flag laps. I don't know. It's just but I don't know what more you can expect realistically. I'm not surprised. I'm thankful that we got a green flag run there at the end. It happened after we had a lot of attrition and the starting parts that pulled off the track, and we've seen some incidents clear out some other cars as well. But I don't know if capping the field size is the answer. I would hope it's not. I would hate to send cars home, but I don't know if that's too many cars, too much of a speed discrepancy. Like I mentioned at the start of the race, especially, you had cars on lap 4. It seemed like that were in danger of going a lap down and powerless to stop it because their equipment just isn't capable of what the equipment that Connor Zilic and William Sawalich have is capable of.
I'll say this. Do you think, here's another positive maybe, do you think we would have had Landon Lewis passing for the lead and leading so many laps if we were at maybe Slinger Speedway instead of Bristol?
If Landon Lewis had been at Slinger, I think we might have seen it, but I don't know if
Well,
Landon
just
Lewis.
some other high banked short oval example that we would go to instead.
Yeah, I think, and again, I know you mentioned this before we came on the air. Landon Lewis led 80 laps and became a battle between him and Sawalich for the win after Zilich was taken out. So kudos to him. That's a great result, and that was great to see. But I would think we could see. I mean, Landon Lewis is an ARCA winner. He's a talented driver. I would think we could see that anytime he's in an ARCA race, but we haven't seen him nearly as much as we've seen William Sawalich and Connor Zilich this year. Maybe we don't see him if we're not at Bristol, and that is potentially a silver lining here. And yeah, I mean, I'm just pulling the stats up right now. This is his first start of a year, so it's yeah. I mean, that's the counter to it, I guess. We probably don't see Landon Lewis in this race if we're somewhere other than Bristol. So again, I see both sides of it. It's frustrating to me looking at the state of the series here. And again, I know it's always been this way. You've always had, you've never been able to say the Brad Smiths of the world, can take the fight to William Sawalich on his best day or the Gibbs cars on his best day. But it's just, maybe it's a sign of maturity on my part, looking at this as an adult rather than just as a kid, and being amazed that there's close to 35 race cars on the track at once. But then you look at the speed discrepancies here, and I don't know. I mean,
It's just roadblocks at that point. You got 35 race cars and it's an ARCA, and I mean we
yeah,
know
and
the back half of the field is slow as heck. So they're
and
just
you try to cram that high number of cars on only a half-mile short track, high banked, high speed half-mile short track.
you're
I don't
dodging.
know.
You're just in a dodging obstacle course every lap if you're the leaders.
Yeah, and I still have. I was watching that Talladega race, close to, my goodness, what was that? 2015. I feel like 10 years ago now, when Brad Smith went hard into the wall at driver's side of Talladega and had to miss the rest of the year, and that was a very serious situation. I definitely don't want to see him get hurt again, just as much as I don't want to see, somebody like Connor Zilich get hurt. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't think anybody wants to see anybody get hurt, but it leaves the door open for possibilities like that, as safe as these race cars are nowadays. I think we were far from the only ones that were looking at the opening laps here and thinking, man, that doesn't seem safe. I mean, it's just, and again, I understand that a lot of these guys are only out here for a few laps before they pull in and collect their share of the purse here. But I guess you could say kudos to them for recognizing the limitations of their equipment. And Brad Smith got off the track very quickly, didn't try to, and not that he ever tries to cause a problem, but I don't know, man. It's just it's difficult for me to look at what we saw on Thursday, between how it unfortunately impacted the championship and seeing the speed differential between the front half and back half of the grid. I don't know, but you get a very entertaining product out of that. But credit to Landon Lewis here, because goodness knows there have been times this year and the previous couple of seasons where the 18 cars led every single lap. We actually had a battle for the win and ultimately a battle for the championship with what happened to Zilich. And Sawalich, to his credit, brought the car across the line, did everything he needed to do, and he is your ARCA East champion. So congratulations to him, and we'll keep an eye on where his career goes here in the future. I think some heavy talk again that this was the same path that he was on here, the same path as Connor Zilich to go Xfinity racing as soon as he turned 18. And to your point, Brandon, kind of go over the traditional ABC, ARCA, Busch to Cup, Busch now being Xfinity. We saw it with Ty Gibbs. We've seen it in the past with other drivers. I think sometimes you don't necessarily need to take a stop in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series on that development ladder. So we'll see if it works for Zilich and Sawalich potentially as well next year.
It's now ATXC.
ATX, yeah.
Learn your ATXCs.
Yeah, or AXC, I guess, just in the case of
Yeah.
in a couple of these drivers here. But yeah, the acronym doesn't work quite as well, I guess, but it's the
No,
same
it's
idea.
it's butchered. It's gone.